Welcome to Night Light. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
I hope everyone had a great weekend, and I want to say happy early birthday to Barbara. It's been 3 years since tonight's guest appeared on Nightlight, and the show with Arlen is like mid-February of 2019, and has been one of our best archiving shows. Since then, Arlen has managed to get out a great CD, and our guest is Arlen Roth, and you may have seen him touring with Simon and Garfunkel, maybe saw him recently at the Grand Ole Opry, heard his music in Crossroads, watched his Hot Licks guitar series, saw any of his guitar lessons on Sam Ash's YouTube channel, and Arlen's new CD is a collaboration with the legendary John Sebastian, and their CD is entitled The Spoonful Songbook. You can learn more about Arlen by going to his website, arlenroth.com. Hi, Arlen. How are you?
Hey, Mark. Great to be here. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm fine.
Good.
I'm excited to have you return. I'm looking forward to getting into discussing the Spoonful Songbook, but
yeah.
Before we get into that, we're an eclectic show. Barbara and I are a little quirky at times, and I wanted to hear about
No, never. Come on.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's been 3 years, too. That's amazing.
Yeah. We had that Joanna Summer Scales on a Sunday. Merle Fankhauser was Tuesday, and you were a Wednesday show. It was like the first time we ever done like 3 out of 4 shows were musical themed, and it was a really exciting week. But yeah, that was like mid-February of 2019.
Yeah.
But before we jump into the Spoonful Songbook, I want to hear about this haunted studio where you're doing some kind of top secret project at the moment.
Well, the studio, no. The studio is not haunted. The haunting that we experienced was right here in my house.
Oh, okay.
The studio is just a nice place where it's only about 4 miles away, and I'm with my engineer Alex Salzman, who has probably done 9 albums with me already, including Lexi's projects, my daughter Lexi. And he is just fantastic. You know, so I'm doing this new all-acoustic album, and I cut another bluegrass tune today. I'm doing a lot more singing on this album. Singing, so far I've sung like 4 out of 5 songs that I've done. But there'll be, I think it'll be like even half and half singing and instrumental. But I feel a lot more confident with the vocals now, and some things are what I've written, and some things are other people's material. And I'm very, very happy with it. I mean, sometimes I'll even discover the song that I want to do, like 2 days before I go in and do the session. And like today, and we just, boom, we just did it. It was great. It was like 3 or 4 hours, and we were out of there, you know. So, but he's a great engineer. The haunting experience, since you asked about that, that was here in the house. Is a very serious thing. I mean, this is a house, they say it was built in 1952, which is the year I was born, but it seems older than that, unless maybe I'm older than I even think. I don't know. But it was here, and there's a hallway that separates. It's a very small house. There's only 3 rooms besides the kitchen. The living room and the bedroom are sort of opposite each other, and there's a hallway that runs through there. You know, just sort of like a, I don't know, 4-foot wide kind of breezeway. And I'm lying in bed. I wasn't sleeping at all. And Diana was in here in the living room, and she was not sleeping at all either. But I'm in the room, all of a sudden I hear all this talking going on. I mean, really loud talking. It was 2 people, a prominent voice and another voice that was like much quieter but answering the other voice. But I couldn't make out the words. I mean, it was really pretty loud. But I'm thinking she's in here talking on the phone, you know, like many times she is, or that she was in here watching the television, you know, because I'm in the bedroom, which there's no phone in the bedroom, nor any TV. So anyway, I bring it up, and she says, wait a minute, I was hearing that. She says, but I thought it was you. She says, I thought you were talking to somebody. I said, no. You know, we were hearing it out of the thing that was in between the 2 rooms we were in. And so it was incredible because it lasted a very long time. And it was like, it was just like a conversation from outer space or something. And it was just bizarre the way it materialized. And, you know, when I kept, and like that night and even for the subsequent days after that, my dog Penny, who, you know, you've seen Penny, pictures of her anyway,
Right.
She spent the whole time staring, looking up at the ceiling, looking up at the wall, and acting scared. Turns into a little fraidy cat sometimes, you know. She's backing away, and she's looking, and I'm like, she's never done that. She's never stood in this spot, right where the voices were coming from, that spot, and looked up, and was full of anticipation. So I was, you know, because they say a lot of times animals on a plane that allows them to, like, you know, be aware of things like that, and they observe it, they even see things. But she was really acting like it, and last night she did the same thing. She came out of that room, but was backing away. She was backing away from it, and she never does that. But she was backing away like she was scared or a little bit, you know, confused or whatever. But we haven't heard any more of those sounds. But that was the one time, and it was just so prominent. And the fact that Diana heard it in one room and I heard it in the other room, you know, pretty amazing.
Okay. Yeah, the in-between space sounds like it's symbolic of something in between two worlds type.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, and coming up in mid-April when we have a Washington Irving scholar on, and he wrote besides Legend of Sleepy Hollow. He wrote a lot more gothic romance short stories, and a couple of them touch on topics like that. But he was writing about things like that in the 1830s and 40s. So this idea has been around for a long time. That's very interesting.
But the thing what happened though was 2 days after it, I was kind of like examining the area where it came from, and of course there's like a front door there, and I realized that this house has an old telephone wire, okay, that's not being used, that's defunct, and it's not even hooked up anymore to a pole, but it's hooked up to the house where that, on that, at the front of that spot. And then it just runs off into the lawn. It's like this black telephone wire that just kind of like goes into the lawn, and then nobody has ever wanted to remove it for some reason. We've had people come, and I say, well, what about this wire? This wire that's here. So it's interesting. Maybe that wire acted as some kind of conduit for something, in terms of like maybe some old memories that went through that wire, or old you never know. But the fact is, right at that point, that's where there's this old defunct telephone wire comes right to that spot.
Sounds like that Twilight Zone episode, Night Call.
Oh, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, that's there's a storm knocked a telephone wire down in a graveyard, and the old boyfriend was calling this lady in bed. So
it sounded like a phone call. We thought it sounded like a phone call because there was the radio show. Thought it was a phone call because there was a quieter voice sort of answering the louder voice. Like there was a prominent voice, and then there was this other voice like, whatever it was saying, as if, there was somebody else at the other end of the line. So it's like there was a conversation going on between two people.
But the voices weren't very clear, or were they speaking a foreign language?
It wasn't you couldn't tell. I mean, it had a pattern as if it were English or whatever, something that we'd be familiar with. But no matter how hard you listened, because I actually got out of bed and started listening, by the wall and by the door, you couldn't make out the words. You just couldn't make it out. They were like these sort of muffled sounds, It's kind of like the intelligible part of the word was about as if like the high end of it was like removed or something. You just couldn't hear, you could not make any distinction, but you knew that there were two people, two different tonalities having this conversation, It was very weird. It was really weird, and it definitely had a little bit of an otherworldly quality to it. It was one thing like that if you just, there's a conversation again. This time it was a conversation, but it just seemed to be coming from somewhere else. It was just really odd. But I just wonder, my theory about that telephone wire, I just wonder if that wire has anything to do with it. It could,
Yeah. If we have a guest that covers something like that, we'll give you their opinion. Pass it on.
Remember the last time you asked me about my UFO sightings too, That was one thing. But we could, let's go on to the spoonful. That's enough of that.
I have all kinds of questions for you, but
sure.
Okay, so you did this new terrific CD with John Sebastian from the Lovin Spoonful, one of the biggest bands in the 60s.
Absolutely, sure.
Yeah. What was it about what John and the band were doing in the 60s that really resonated with you, when you were a teenager?
Yeah, well, I was about, let's see, I was 13 when they first came out, and, they had, that was the time when we were involved with Beatlemania, with the Stones, with, the English Invasion, but any group that was really, really good could right away grab the spotlight, So all of a sudden, here comes the Lovin Spoonful with these incredible songs. Do you believe in magic? You didn't have to be so nice. Daydream. Did you ever have to make up your mind? Which is my favorite one. But they had such a good time, positive feel, and I didn't care whether they were American or English or anything. I didn't differentiate like that. But, Zal, the guitar player, Zal Yanofsky, had so much personality and was so funny, and he played so great because they were more country than a lot of the other groups. And because he came out of Toronto, Canada. So the folks in Canada just love country music, and they're very rooted in country music. So the Spoonful were just like a breath of fresh air. They were positive, they were vibrant, they were funny. They had all kinds of great personality. And, they appeared on like Ed Sullivan and all those other shows on TV. And most of the time they were playing live, or if they were not playing live, they'd be singing live to tracks or whatever it might have been. Because back in those days, you'd have almost any combination of anything. But they were just great, and they had one hit after another. Like major hits, and their songs had, of course, that was also the era of not only did you buy singles, 45s, but you bought albums, and they had some great album cuts. Like when I told John that I wanted to do that album cut called Four Eyes on this album, he was like, "Oh yeah, we got to do that," because as a kid, that song just stuck with me. It was sort of like, for the Spoonful, it was a rather hard-hitting song that had kind of a little bit more of a darker message, And I just loved what they did. And I loved his voice, and I loved the sound of the record. And there were a lot of common threads through their songs, because he likes to write with that sort of ragtimey, kind of like 1920s, 1930s kind of changes. It's almost like, because how he loves jug band music and all that stuff. It's that kind of stuff. It's ragtime. But then all of a sudden, he could come out with something like Summer in the City, And Summer in the City was their biggest hit of all. But it was right there with being a completely different kind of song, It didn't sound anything like that. It was the only one that was in a minor key, And it was darker. It just had a darker quality to it, and it was just a monster hit, So, yeah, I loved everything they did, But I was a big fan of only their original lineup. Like once Zal Yanofsky left, I didn't even know there was a Lovin Spoonful after that, It's like the Byrds without the original Byrds too, something like that. But that was a great period for music.
Yeah, and you just mentioned, John's interest in jug bands, and they do have the jug band music song. Where I can see where you and John would be able to exchange a lot of ideas about the Americana type music, roots music. But where did the auto harp come in with John's music? It's unusual to see that in a rock band.
Well, you never saw it in a rock band, but if you saw the Carter Family, or if you saw, any old-timey country acts back in those days, there were always auto harps, or zithers, you know. But auto harps were all over the place. And in fact, did you ever see that clip of John with Mama Cass, with Cass Elliot doing Darling Companion? And she's playing the auto harp, you know. So it was very much you know, Maybelle Carter, you know, the Carter family, that kind of thing. It comes from old-time country music, and you know, that's what where John picked it up. It was like a big thing in folk groups back then, you know, because he came up in that period in the 50s and early 60s when it was, you know, a lot of those folk acts and the old country acts. So I think that's where it came from, you know.
Okay. It's you know, it's just very unique with
sure.
him.
And he plays it beautifully. You know, he really plays it. I mean, you know, Randy Van Warmer, his song "You Left Me Just When I Needed You Most."
Right. Okay.
You know that song? Well, that auto harp solo in there, that's him. That's John. And
I
then
did not
when
know
Dolly,
that.
yeah, and then because Randy, they were based up in Woodstock, and then when Dolly Parton remade that song, because it's just a beautiful song. When Dolly Parton redid it, he redid his auto harp solo on it too. So so John's playing auto harp on you know, those two versions that are separated by like about 40 years, you know. But he's just, you know, and just such a great harmonica player. He's like a brilliant harmonica player and a great guitar picker. So like when he and I are together, it's just like, you know, it's showing off instruments to each other and every day trying to, you know, just back and forth kind of playing and sharing stories and sharing licks. It's like, you know, it's almost like we come from the same background in a way. And the fact that I grew up so adoring his music, I think he really takes that to heart. I think because he has a lot of respect for me, and he pictures me as like a young kid just tuning in the radio and loving the Lovin Spoonful, you know. And it was, I just remember that time so clearly, you know. That's when I was really developing as a guitar player and as a musician, and just, you know, falling in love with those songs, you know, and with Yanofsky's playing and also John's playing. So it's just a natural thing that all these years later we're together doing it, you know.
Yeah, and that natural feel comes across on the music. Really.
Yeah, thank you. I think it does. I really think it does. It's a shame that the whole COVID thing cut into our ability to do a lot of the recording together, right, you know. But a lot of the basic tracks, because you got to realize the album was done over a period of time. I think it started in 2016, believe it or not. So we, you know, I'd go up to Woodstock like maybe once a week, go to his house, we'd work on some stuff, then we'd go into the studio, which was only 2 or 3 miles from his house, and we would work on it. But it wasn't a fast project. You know, it was done very deliberately, and we'd kind of, you know, toss around a few different ideas. We even recorded a few songs that never made it to the album. Like John didn't feel that Summer in the City, that it was such a monster hit with a monster sound that we just weren't able to recapture to him. I wish he kept it on the album because it had my biggest guitar solo. But the song, it was like a mountainous guitar solo. But, you know, and there's even that clip of he and I at Bethel Woods, you know, on YouTube. You can see us doing Summer in the City, just the two of us, you know. But it just couldn't, it just didn't, we couldn't match up to the energy, I guess is the way he put it, on the original record, you know. He just figured, let's just leave that one alone and not try to you know, emulate that. So I was a little bit sad about that, but, you know, they're his songs, so I wasn't going to, like, put my foot down and say, no, we're going to do it anyway, you know. That wouldn't have worked. So,
So did did you see John performing at Woodstock? He wasn't even a scheduled performer. It was like
I know.
he got on
I
the.
was there. I was there because I lived only a mile from the site, but I'd missed that one. He didn't. When I was there, when he was on, I wasn't there. I saw, I was backstage when it was Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and I saw Santana there, and I saw a whole bunch of different people at different times, but it was Johnny Winter. Johnny Winter and I we were talking about that. But I kept going back and forth because I lived there, and so I must have walked back and forth about 4 times to the festival over that period of time, So, but I know John was there, and he just had to like do a set because they needed somebody to do something, and he did a great job. He did a great job.
And you can still see "Darling Be Home Soon" on YouTube, and
yeah,
he redid that for this CD. It was also on a Lovin Spoonful album as well.
Yeah, it's a great song.
Mm-hmm.
Great song. And he told me a story about how when that song was done, they somehow accidentally erased the whole thing. So they had to start completely from scratch all over again to do it. So he says every time he listens to it, he thinks of that. He hears the fact that he had to do it all over again, kind of thing. But that's what would happen back in those days. Tape would get somehow erased or lost or whatever, but that was a great song and one of his best,
And you have your daughter Lexi being
she did a great
one
job.
of the yes, didn't want to have to do it. She appears regularly on your CDs. Is it pretty easy working with family?
Oh, of course, especially when it's family like that, where we're so close. The music is really what binds us together. Because even as a little tiny girl, and her late sister Jillian, it was all about music. Just the three of us would always just sing harmony, and of course I was teaching Jilly the guitar, and then I started teaching Lexi the guitar. But they learned just by watching, just by listening and watching, which is how I learned. I never took lessons. So it's just a very natural sort of like musical family, and Lexi has an incredible ear, and she also has an amazing ability with her writing. Even when she was about 6 years old, she would write these stories and poems and all these incredibly esoteric, amazing things that she'd write when she was just a little tiny girl. And just she has that kind of inspiration, that kind of mind. And so she carried through. When she did her first album, she has an album called One Long Blink, which she did when she was from the age of 15 to about 17. And I thought she was just going to sing a song on my album at the time, like she was going to do that song Angry River, which, I wrote when I was with Steel, my band, back when I was 16. And she kept, every day she'd go up into her room and I'd hear more and more music coming out. And I said, Lex, I think you're working on a whole album. You've got a whole album's worth of material here. And next thing you know, she had enough songs for an entire album of her own. So that One Long Blink album is still absolutely incredible. A lot of people don't really know about it, and none of that stuff is even on YouTube. But she finally realizes now that it's just a great record. She was just a little too young to appreciate. Once she got it out of her system, she wanted to move on to so many other things, and she kept thinking of that as being sort of like her very young, immature self, what happens to be brilliant, because they're all these amazing songs. So, I have a bunch of copies. I can get one to you, but it's just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And the late great Mindy Jostin playing on it. Mindy was the fiddle player and accordion player who played with me and Kate Taylor, Jim Taylor's sister.
Okay.
And
Wow.
she would always perform with us. And she was also in the Hooters, and she was the one. She's that woman that was always playing with John Mellencamp,
Okay.
where they did like Wild Nights and all. That's her. That's Mindy Jostin.
Oh, okay. I know exactly who you mean. Okay.
Yeah, so she was in our band for a little while, and then she was in the band with me and Kate Taylor. But sadly, she passed away. She was very, very young. So, but she was just the greatest. Really. So she's even in the video that Lexi did for my song Angry River, where Mindy's there by the river playing the violin, and she was just an amazing musician and amazing person.
Okay. And like Lexi just has a wonderful voice. We can get into the Mona Lisa twins as well.
They're great. They are phenomenal. I think their harmonies deserve a Grammy. Really.
They're John's neighbors, or it sounds like they live nearby. And
no. They're in Europe. They're in Europe.
All they. Okay. Yeah. I was impressed with what they just the whole group of people that were brought in. But they did a terrific job. They appear on numerous songs.
Yeah, their work on Four Eyes is just unbelievable. And, they're twins, so they have pretty much the same voice, and they're originally from Austria, but they live now they're more up near like Liverpool, England,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But they're wonderful. They're great.
And then Maria Muldaur is.
Yeah, Maria's on there. And her ex-husband Jeff Muldaur is on there too.
Yeah, and Maria had like about one of the biggest hits in the 70s with Midnight at the Oasis.
Sure.
It's still you can find it on YouTube. It's on all those compilations of greatest hits from the late
I was
night
at her house.
CDs. Yep.
I was at her house in Woodstock when we listened to the first test pressing of that record. And I went there in the car with Amos Garrett, who is the brilliant guitar player on that track. It's the guitar playing that makes that song great. That's Amos Garrett. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I was with Amos, and we went to Maria's house, and we're all listening, Artie Traum, this one, that one, David Nichtern, who was the guy who wrote the song, and we're just all listening to the first pressing of it, and it was like really exciting. Because it was pretty obvious. It felt like this was going to be a hit. We really believed it, and it was.
And a friend of mine has her new CD with the New Orleans jazz band, and my friend
really
loves
into
it.
That. Yeah, she's great. Maria's great. She just was always, and she goes all the way back, with John before any of them were famous. And there's the Jim Kweskin Jug Band, and there was also the Even Dozen Jug Band, which was in New York, also that Maria was in. So they all had this thing going on, which all centered around Greenwich Village and, Washington Square Park and all these people getting together and playing. It was a folk music boom, back then. I was a little too young for it. They're all like about 8 to 12 years older than me, all those people. But I came in that scene, and there I was, rock and roll Arlen with his electric guitar, and just tore it up. So,
Well, you were,
like,
it started the show off, talking a little bit about the Spoonful's influence on you when you're 13, 14 years old.
Yeah, sure.
Probably about when I was about the same age, John wrote and performed the Welcome Back Kotter theme song. So that John's relevant more to my time period, just at the same age, but
well, that was the only number one hit he had, and of course that was no longer the Spoonful, so we didn't do that on this album, but we did do that at the Opry. We just performed that at the Opry because they requested it, So all of a sudden we come up there and we got 3 backup singers, we got a whole band behind us, we got, it's like you walk into the Opry, you're right away backed up in every regard, It's like, and everybody knows your song. It's like we do like one quick little rehearsal for 5 minutes, and that's it. And you walk on stage, and boom, you're an instant tourist attraction.
Wow. What is it about John's songwriting that makes, do you believe in magic in 1965, like that time, 65, and about 11, 12 years later, I'm first starting to hear Welcome Back Kotter and, really enjoying, that TV show and John's song. What is it about his writing skills that makes him timeless?
Well, I think, of course, any great music really is timeless. But I think he has this rare ability to just pull things out of the air, come up with great ideas. Sometimes, he would only have like one night to write a song. Like that Welcome Back Kotter, that story with him is like, they literally gave him just one night to come up with that song. And I think he's just got a real flair for great melodies, great chord changes. He always had a wonderful voice, very smooth voice, very easy to listen to. And he's tapped into that New York kind of old school, like we used to call it, almost like the Tin Pan Alley style of writing, where it's like, I only have an hour to write this song, no problem, let's go, boom. So he works so hard at it, and I think he goes through a lot of different rough drafts of it, and also the lyrics as well, because he's also a great lyricist. The lyrics are very clever, some of them, like unbelievably clever, and really funny, I think he just has that, he's able to marry the lyrics and the song together so perfectly that it's really a work of art. When he's done with it, it's a work of art, I remember one time, one very telling thing, I was working on an album up in Woodstock at a studio. I'm working on my album Toolin' Around, which is a pretty well-known album of mine. And Sebastian just happened to show up in the middle of something that I was doing there. And as usual, my album, that had a lot of guitar soloing, a lot of long, instrumental interludes. And he walks in and he looks at me, he goes, as usual, no structure at all. No structure. And I told him that story years later. He was cracking up. Because with him, the minute he hears music, he's hearing structure. He's a songwriter, First and foremost, he's a writer. So he is very much concerned with the structure of a song. Whereas with a lot of my stuff that I was doing back then, it was like, all right, now we'll solo for 4 minutes, that was my idea of structure, And that's the last thing in the world that Sebastian would ever approve of on his own music. You think of like a song like Summer in the City, okay, that record, that's not even 3 minutes, okay? And it seems to be like a lifetime that goes on, So many changes and things and sound effects and images and imagery, in that song. And I would think that it would be like a 6-minute song, The experience is that of a 6-minute song, but it's like a 2-minute and 2-minute 50-second something or other, which you just can't believe, It's like the Beatles. The Beatles were able to do the same thing, hit you with something under 3 minutes, and to you was like a lifetime of music, Just incredible. It's genius, really, It's a kind of genius. It really is. And
and I hope with all the authors we have listening and painters that they learn from what you are saying about an artist like John, who is so recognizable.
Right.
And hopefully, some of the listeners are getting some inspiration on, realizing, okay, maybe just make a little bit of a change over here. That would propel me more, forward. Yeah, it's something. Just
well,
listening to.
Yeah. I grew up in a family of visual artists. My dad was a famous cartoonist. He was a great painter. My brother is a famous painter. And I grew up amongst all that stuff too. But the one thing that my dad and my brother always said is like, that one of the hardest moments with a work of art is to know when it's done. Just to say, okay, I'm walking away from this, Because my dad used to, sometimes he'd have a painting hanging in the living room, and 15 years after he painted it, he'd say, it needs this. And he would just do a little something, and then that would finish it to him, But he was living with it, the idea of living with the art. It's like I'm doing this new album now, and I go home, the engineer sends me the tracks, and now I'm living with them. I'm listening, and I'm thinking, what can be done? What can be improved? So, but at the same time, you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to overthink something. There has to be an element of spontaneity to it. John is a real tunesmith. He can really write like if it was a 9-to-5 job. He'd be able to sit there with his guitar and just bang out great songs one after another, because that's how he approaches it. Me, I'll have something laying around for 8 years in my head or on the guitar, and I'll just like it the way it is. I'll never put words to it. But then when I head to the recording session, maybe I'll write words that day, because I just get happy with it. I live with it instrumentally. I'm so happy with it as a piece of music, So I'm the complete opposite of that. But if I'm given a deadline, boom, it's going to be written, I just have to have that structure of somebody telling me, you have to do this now, Otherwise I just get lazy and I let the music lie around until one day it comes out on an album of mine or something, This is the album of John is my 17th solo album now. And now I'm doing my 18th, and my soul album that I'm going to be doing, in April, which I have to keep as a secret right now, but it's going to be a real all-star soul album. That's going to be number 19 for me. So, before you know it, they all start to pile up.
Yeah, with the soul album, is that going to be a little bit like Summit and Telemasters? A little bit of...
Not so much about it being all these guest artists, but it's going to be an album that's going to be me with another guy featured, somebody who I played with for many years, who was like a major rhythm and blues and soul musician. And then we're going to have a couple of guests on the album. But what we're doing is we're doing a lot of classic material, and reworking some of it, and having a couple of different vocalists on the album, of which I am one as well. There'll probably be about 3 different singers on the album. But we're talking about quintessential, the great players, from the horns to the rhythm section to everything. It's all going to be just unbelievable. So I'm really excited about it. And that, again, is something that I've been talking with my co-artist on. I've been talking about it for probably about 4 years at this point. So it's a good time to get it done.
I'm looking forward to hearing it.
Oh, that's going to be a big one. That's going to be big, very, very big. And plus I'm just really, I'm grabbing material from all over the place. Like some songs are not even known as really soul songs, but we're going to do them sort of soul and R&B style. So, but it's one of those albums I'm just going to let it be very organic. Let the musicians collectively create the sound, just like all the great soul sections like Muscle Shoals and all the Memphis guys, Steve Cropper and those guys, let the musicians kind of create it in the studio and come up with something fresh. That's going to be exciting. And I miss those days. I miss those days of just going to the studio with a bunch of people and just coming up with something. And that was one of the great things about working with Paul Simon in the studio, that he really understood just getting everybody together and let them start playing, And then when it was really right, boom, let's take it. Let's record now, while it's fresh, kind of thing. And I like that. I like how Paul worked in the studio like that. It was good. It's the way I like to work, too.
With artist friends like, John and, Johnny Winter, Yorma, you did a video with John Entwistle.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some kind of unifying theme from Woodstock that helped to coalesce all these people's careers?
I don't know if it had to do with Woodstock per se. I mean, I think Woodstock was a time and place that was kind of like a high point during that era, when a lot of people were creating a lot of music, but there still wasn't, things were still fairly unorganized then, and nobody was really making any real money yet, from it all. But it was just happening. It was just like exploding. But, the musicians that I've played with, all the top players that I've been with, and the stars and the this and that, the one thing that always seems like you're always on the same level when there's this clear understanding that we're going for the same thing. We're going for the essence of what this song is or what this record is. Not that we're trying to become stars or we're trying to make a lot of money, or we're trying to stay on top even though our careers are dying, whatever the motive might be. There's just a certain moment, I can remember that, with like, with Simon and Garfunkel or with any of these people, that all of a sudden you look in each other's eyes and you realize we're on that same plane. We don't have to even talk about it. We just understand it. You know, we're connected by the music. And, you know, it's just a fascinating thing, you know, how that all works. And, you know, before you know it, once you're on that wavelength with each other, everything becomes so much easier, you know, so much easier. It just flows, you know. And when I look back on my career now and I think about the people where that really wasn't the case, you could see why things weren't that good with them, why there was kind of an emptiness or a fault there somewhere, where the connection wasn't fully made, you know, or they weren't yet mature enough to understand that, you know. I've seen that with a lot of people, you know, a lot of different artists. But that's the beauty of it, you know. There was a time back then when I was doing so many, you know, the early 70s and through the whole 70s, I was playing, it was the singer-songwriter era, you know. So I got to play, it was one singer-songwriter after another, it seemed like almost on a daily basis that I was working with. And, you know, they were looking for you to do something with their music that would bring it even more to life, you know. So I used to relish that because I'd come in and right away play for the song, you know, play for that. And while I'm doing that, of course, I was also learning, you know. That's a tremendous period of learning for me as well. So, you know, when that songwriter understands that you're going for that and you're even making their stuff better, then you really have a collaboration, you know. So that's the beautiful thing. The collaboration part of it for me is like the best. I don't want to be the lonely guy at the top directing this, that, and the other thing. It's the collaboration that matters. It's that interchange, you know. That's where the real growth happens, I think.
Okay. I'm sure that's helping people in the audience. That's a very important point to make. So,
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
With song, one of the songs on the Spoonful Songbook CD is Nashville Cats. I really enjoy that song. So it's a good example of this
we did that at the Opry too. Yeah, we did that at the Opry as well. And you know, that's me singing that on the album.
Mm-hmm.
That's not John. That's me.
Right.
On the album. Yeah.
Was that John's song or?
It's John's song. Yes.
Okay, and that's about just the trying to make it in the music industry. It has a good song.
It's bigger. I mean, it's more than that. It's just about that Nashville had all these cats. Nashville had all these great pickers, you know, and just the way he describes it, it's just so perfect, you know. There's 1,652 guitar pickers in Nashville, and anyone that unpacks his case will, you know, play twice as better than I will, you know, that they're all just so darn good. And that was what, you know, written in the 60s. But he and Zally, after a gig that they did in Nashville in front of like thousands of people, then they went back to this bar and they heard this kid just playing and playing and playing his heart out. And, you know, John thinks that it was Danny Gatton, but it could have been, but I don't think it, I don't know. It's hard to say. John thinks that it was Danny Gatton way back then, because Danny was maybe a kid, but he was already playing great. But what it was that they said, look, this guy's twice as better than us than we'll ever be, and he's just playing in this little bar at the Holiday Inn, you know. And who are we to think there were such big shots, you know, with all our hit records and everything. So that was the essence of how he came up with Nashville Cats, you know.
I enjoy that one. And what was the idea behind doing, just say, Do You Believe in Magic as a instrumental, and your guitar is sounding almost like a voice?
Well, yeah, some of that was a little difficult for me because when John first heard that I was doing this album, I was doing just instrumental Spoonful songs. I wasn't going to try to sing them, you know. And then he decided he wanted to be in on the album, because I did a Stones tribute. The Stones weren't on that. I did a Bob Dylan one. He wasn't on that. I did a Simon and Garfunkel. They're not on it either. Art Garfunkel wrote the liner notes, which was nice, but, you know, those are all my albums. John wanted to be a part of this. And John, we tried a whole bunch of tunes, and, you know, to see if we could sing them, see if we could do them instrumentally. I think he wanted to keep the balance so that I was still doing some of what I originally wanted with the album, which was to do the songs instrumentally. So, but some of them were originally going to be sung, but then we decided to just do them as instrumentals, like Daydream, Do You Believe in Magic, A Younger Girl, like that. And, you know, I said, fine, it's great, you know, we'll do that. But some of them ended up in keys that I don't normally play in. I wouldn't necessarily have done those in those keys because they were designed for the voice, you know. But they worked out. They worked out okay, you know. I would have done it totally differently. If the album had been all instrumental, it would have been a whole different vibe, you know. But I think this worked out really well because John, first and foremost, he's a musician. So he got a chance to play his songs all over again with me. So it was kind of like a fresh take on it for him, you know. And he just loves how much I love the music. So that kind of like sparked him again that, you know, Arlen is really, really loving this stuff as if it's fresh and new. And because for me it was all about my youth. It was about what I used to play. There's that little story in the album of like my cousin. I had a cousin who had a band that would play Spoonful stuff. He was about 7 years older than me, but I went to his house and I had to critique the whole band. I had to tell them all what to play. You know, I was 13. I was telling all these 20-year-olds what to play. You know.
Yeah, from the liner notes.
Yeah, my cousin's band, I didn't realize what they were called at the time, but their name was The Plague. They were called The Plague. So, because I was telling that story to my brother the other day, and he said, oh, yeah, The Plague. I'm like, that's right. I forgot that their name was The Plague. But, you know, it was these guys that they even were trying to, like, look like the Spoonful, you know. So it was pretty interesting. Those were great times, very innocent times.
Yeah, the stories we could tell.
Oh, great song!
That has. It's a great vignette of, you know, boy and a girl, you know, husband and wife. Sitting there, reminiscing. It's.
Yeah, it could be anyone. It could really be anyone reminiscing.
Right.
To sit on a bed in a motel room and telling stories. You know, I mean, like it's a song of almost like the road. It's a song about being on the road, and yet what is it really except a story to tell? And then when John and I get together, that's all we do is we tell stories. It's incredible. I mean, you can't stop us, you know. So we both have this incredible wealth of things we've been through and experiences in the music business and similar upbringings, and we just have all this great stuff that we can relate to each other on. So it's wonderful. When we get together and we go out for a dinner or something, somebody should have a tape recorder going because what gets said is just it's unbelievable, really is. And his stuff is priceless, and it's just amazing. It's amazing.
Did he talk about playing with the Doors?
Yeah, a little bit. He mentioned that about doing the harmonica, I guess, on a couple of those. His touted, I was never a big Doors fan, but I know John was doing, I think he was working with Paul Rothschild, the producer back then.
Mm-hmm.
And who produced the Doors. And so John, he would call it. John did all kinds of sessions where he was almost playing anonymously on things back then, because that's how it would happen back then. You wouldn't necessarily get credit on the album.
Okay. Are you working on your autobiography to get these stories?
I wish I could. I wish I could say that. I mean, well, there's somebody else I have who's kind of like helping put it together, But we'll see how far it's gone. It's been a couple of years we've been talking about it already, and I have unbelievable stories. The rarest thing about me being a musician is I actually retained all these stories. I remember everything. So I just know exactly what people told me all the time and all the happenings in the studios and happenings on the road and just the general richness of life, that I've just always retained because it's all about it being something that will be retold someday, So that to me is very important, But,
okay.
it's like when I think about creating hot licks, and I look at those videos and 30 years of shooting over 240 videos with all 180 different artists and watching that whole thing, pass before my eyes, what it meant, what it took to do all that, to get James Burton in the studio, to get Buddy Guy there, to get Junior Wells there, to get Tal Farlow, whoever it might have been. All these artists who in the beginning never wanted to do anything like that because I made it cool for people to teach on tape. Nobody ever did it before. So, I'm the first one who ever did the videos, the instructional videos. So, and I understood that it was all about being self-taught and helping others teach themselves. Not about like, okay, class, listen very carefully, and you have to do exactly this. No, it's about being inspired. You're listening to some of the top musicians in the world, many of us who don't even know how to explain what it is we do. But the video, right? Nobody, but the video is doing the explaining for you. You're seeing it,
right?
So and hearing it. So, people used to tell me, they say, Arlen, we don't even care if we learn anything from the videos. We just watch them and we get inspired, So those people really got what it was all about. So,
Oh,
so we have millions of students all over the world, millions.
Right, and our buddy Greg Martin just played with Buddy Guy over the weekend, and he's still just posting more and more photos that people are sending to him. He was talking about it on his show last night as well, and another one of your bandmates, Brad Paisley.
Brad Paisley.
He's doing a project. Yeah, he's doing it. Something scrolled by yesterday, I think, and I saw where he was doing some project with Elvin Bishop and Garrison Keillor at the Red Rocks Amphitheater.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah, nice.
Yes.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, again, what I'm saying is like it's in the air, like collaborations over the last, I don't know, what, 10, 15 years, it's just gotten more and more prevalent, to collaborate with people and embrace the music of others as you're doing music, whether it be vocalists or whether it be instrumentalists, and I'm one of the guys that really made it a cool thing to do, especially with hot licks, so, and then tooling around that album and, just going on and on with it. So even when I'm doing my own record, I'm still collaborating with somebody in creating it, so it's a wonderful experience, and it's so enriching. I mean, I just feel 100 times better when I can be at the studio and be making some good positive music,
Mm-hmm. And Steve Vai is about ready to start his tour, so there's sample
That's
of
good.
People can watch Crossroads, and they can go to your website and hear some of the outtakes that you and Ry Cooder did, and as well as a whole bunch of other people on the studio joined in with choruses.
Well, yeah, it was great. I'm glad I found that cassette in my basement, because that was all the stuff that things that we never ended up having in the movie, because we were still just working things out. It's like the ending before Steve Vai came in, months before Steve Vai came in. It started out with the ending was going to be me and Ry Cooder, and Ry Cooder was going to be playing the other guitar player. I was going to play Ralph Macchio's parts, and Ry was going to be Ry, and he was going to be the Jack Butler character. But then when the producers and all that, they decided to change that, I think that got Ry a little bit pissed off or whatever, a little bit upset. So,
well,
what are you going to do?
All the people you collaborate with, fortunately getting back on the road, and they have things going on. So, but Arlen, you had studio stuff going on today, and another interview, and you didn't want to make this a full 2-hour shows. If you wanted to just wrap now, we could do that, and you're welcome to come back any time to talk about when you have a new
the next
CD.
Project, yeah.
Yeah.
And John and I also, I mean, John and I are also talking about doing a follow-up already. And I think he wants to release the song that my daughter did, I forgot the name of it already. You mentioned it before, the song that Lexi did on the album. Didn't want to have to do it.
Yeah.
That they want to release that as a single. So all of a sudden, Lexi will have a single out that's from this album, So you never know. You never know how BMG is going to be thinking of this record, but I know that it was a long process, but it was a very, very positive process doing all this, and just so happy that it came out as good as it did.
I enjoy it, and it's something to be very proud of.
Well, thank you. It's an unusual project, but it came out great. It's not the usual kind of thing I did, and that's what I'm happy about. It was something refreshing, something different,
Yeah, and I think that's one of the creative processes that Barbara and I have is, we kind of like those throwing those curveballs at the listeners, and they want to see how we handle it, and
Sure.
hopefully by the end of the interview, they have a new take on whatever that subject is. But it's, I like doing it, just sticking your neck out and trying something different, and you did that,
Sure.
and you and John made it work.
Yeah, and the great thing about John is that, see, he loved the albums I did, like he loved that Stones album I did, and
that's a good one too.
Which I didn't do with any of the Stones. It was just me. And the fact that he felt strong enough about my treatment of their music to have me do his music, but at the same time with him on the album, that created a whole lot more. I don't want to use the word pressure on me, but it made the collaboration, like it had a lot of meaning because they're his songs, So I'm thinking, it was like me doing an album with Burt Bacharach about Burt Bacharach, Well, he's not going to just sit quietly in the corner and just let it all go down. He's going to have a lot of input, So
right.
That's the thing with John too, but there's no problem there because I have the utmost respect for John. That's why I did the album in the first place, because I just love him and love the music, So it was a perfect combination in that regard.
Yeah, you are bringing a lot more of the Spoonful songs to a new generation.
Exactly, yeah. But I tell you, those songs never have gone away. It's like there was one night a couple of months ago I turned on the TV and I heard 4 of his songs on 4 different commercials within the same half hour. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. Chili's is opening up again. Oh, welcome back. And I think for a long time, Do You Believe in Magic, I think, was the McDonald's theme, I mean, this is like some serious royalties, But that's great because his songs are out there. They're timeless as hits, and they're timeless even for commercials. They just have such a direct message. It's a message that everybody can relate to. And that's why these companies, of course, Do You Believe in Magic? What a perfect song for us, and they sell themselves, those songs, They really do.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I enjoy my copy. So, people can get it on Amazon. Where else?
Oh, everywhere.
Okay.
Any place that carries music these days, And, of course, there are also vinyls as well. I had a bunch of vinyls, and boy, everybody wanted them when I was doing gigs. Those sold out really fast, So, and it's so great to hold the album cover, that big album cover, and look at big pictures, It is just great. But working with John, it's a pleasure, and I hope we can do a follow-up to it. He wanted to, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But it's an honor to work with him, and I grew up loving his music, and it's just, I have to pinch myself when I know that I'm actually with him making this album. It's pretty incredible. So.
Okay. Well, Arlen, do you want to close there, and we'll resume sometime soon? I know you've had a long day, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's great. This was great. I really appreciate it. Again, best to Barbara and the show. As usual, you're doing a great job. Let me know
Thanks.
when it's archived so we can have folks listen to it, and we'll just keep in touch.
We'll do that. I'll get it to you tomorrow afternoon. And thanks again, Arlen. And people can go to arlenroth.com to find out more about Arlen. And we will. I think Barbara has a show tomorrow, and we'll see everyone tomorrow. Thanks again, Arlen. Thanks, Barbara, for producing it, and we'll see everyone tomorrow night.